everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change. We will.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori LeBay, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm thrilled you can join us today. We are going to be talking about what the heck does quality care look like in memory care? What is good care? And we're going to hear from some experts today. But before I introduce you to our guests, I always like to do a couple of shout outs. So for those of you that are new, Alzheimer Speaks is about sound information, not just sound bites. We like to have real conversations with real people. So maybe you can be our next guest. Just reach out to me at radio@alzheimerspeaks.com. Everyone at all levels is welcome. I also want to point out that Alzheimer Speaks has updated our main website, so please visit alzheimerspeaks.com. There you'll find one tab that's just full of free educational resources, and feel free to listen, to watch, to download, to share. That's what they're there for. You'll also find a book tab. I finally launched my keynote speech, Betty the Bald Chicken, into a children's book, and I think you'll really enjoy it. It is not dementia specific. It really can be leveraged for any time someone's not feeling like they fit in, or someone who's caring for someone who doesn't feel like they fit in. And we all know what that is like, and it's not fun. So check out Betty the Bald Chicken, Lessons in How to Care. You will also find some information on Dementia Map, which is our global resource directory. Again, if you go to the educational resources, you will find that there. And then I do want to do a shout out to Maud's Awards. Their applications are open until May 15th, so you can apply as an individual or an organization to win funds. It is all about what you've done, not what you're going to do. And then I also want to mention on Friday, April 28th, if you're in the Minnesota area, I will be on Silver Creek on Main, which is out in Maple Grove, and doing a couple of programs from 9:30 to 2:30, and lunch will be provided. You can call Heidi at 763-955-1750 to get more information on that. Okay, so it is time to introduce you to our guest today. Again, we are going to be talking about what does good care look like in memory care? What is that quality of life? And I'm so thrilled that Lindsey Harbison is with us from the 80th Street Residence, along with Deanna Vigliotta and Lori Gredeline with Seni. Now, Lindsey is the Assistant Executive Director for the 80th Street Residence, and she's often the first person that families meet upon their introduction to the 80th Street Residence. She has over 16 years of experience with the community, and she has helped hundreds of families navigate the difficult process of making the move from a home into a residence. Now, Lori, on the other hand, has been working in healthcare and the senior living field for over 20 years. And she has a background of working for marketing for a large pharmaceutical company, working with various long-term care settings. And she currently is the account executive for Seni in the Northeast region of the U.S. And then, of course, we have Deanna Vigliotta. She has over 30 years of healthcare sales and management background. She is so relationship-based, and her whole team is developed in that realm as well. When she goes to sell a product, it's not about the product, it's about the quality of service and how they can help provide quality of life. Deanna has just been with Seni since 2019, and of course right away they recognized her skill sets and moved her into the role of national sales manager. And it's just been an honor to work with her and her team and how they view incontinence. I mean, they don't even like the word incontinence. They want to bring continence back to everybody, and really feels that that is very, very deserving. So let's introduce you to these ladies. So ladies, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. You've all been on the show before, and it's nice to see your smiling faces, but our audience may not have all seen you on shows before. So I'm going to start out like I do with every show, and that is ask each of you individually if you've been touched by dementia in your own family or circle of friends. And Lori, I'm going to start with you this time.
Okay. Thank you again, Lori, for having us on the show. Yes, I have unfortunately been touched by somebody. My father and his wife, my stepmother, took in her mother for about probably 5 to 6 years before she did pass of Alzheimer's. She started to decline, and they thought it'd be safer for her to live with them. So they ended up caretaking for her, like I said, for about 5 to 6 years before she passed from the disease.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And Deanna, how about you?
Unfortunately, I had an aunt on my dad's side that passed from Alzheimer's, but the older I get, the more parents, friends, and relatives with early onset are starting to become, unfortunately, more commonplace.
Thanks. And Lindsey, how about you?
Yes. So my grandmother, my Oma, has dementia. She actually has vascular dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Very special to me. I actually lived with her when I was younger for a few years, one of those multi-generational families. And so, she's very special, and she currently lives in a community down in Florida, but is doing well. And we try to get there to see her as much as we can a couple times a year. And, she's definitely joyful. So I'm happy for that experience that she's having.
Oh, that is so important to take that in, when they're calm and connective and feeling good about life. We shouldn't be hampering that at all. So
right.
I want to start with you, Lindsey, to talk about the 80th Street residents, because, we a lot of times have companies on here that are big franchisees. Tell us about your household model there in New York.
Absolutely. So we are an assisted living residence, but what makes our community so unique is that we are entirely devoted to supporting individuals living with cognitive impairment. So everybody here has some form of cognitive impairment. We have 70 residents with us, and the way that our community is actually designed is very unique. Being that we're located in New York City, we are a vertical structure. Space is limited in New York City. So rather than expanding out, we go up. And so because of that, we have designed each floor to be what's called a neighborhood. And it's based on the household model, so that each floor has its own living room, its own dining room, its own kitchenette, and really sort of these spaces that we all have in our homes, right? And most of us don't spend a majority of time in our bedroom. Most of us would spend more time in these different rooms. And so at our community, they really serve as hubs for socialization, engagement, and togetherness, which we know is so important for people with cognitive impairment, to have opportunities for connection and really minimize isolation for them.
Wonderful. I'm kind of curious, with your residents, do most of them come from living in the city, or do they come outstate, to be by their kids, or are they in rural areas, suburbs?
I would say I've been here for about 16 years now, and I would say that the majority over the years have really been from the New York City area. I honestly think that New York City is such a unique place. I think a lot of people who live in the city and have spent a majority of their life in the city starts to become part of their identity. There are certain sounds, certain smells, tastes, and I think people just want to be around what's familiar to them. I think a lot of them, if they have kids who might live outside of the city. I think the adult children definitely explore the possibility of having their loved ones closer to them, but then they realize like, well, you know what? The city really is who my parent is or my loved one. So a lot of them are from the city.
Well, I think the other thing that comes into play when I was in real estate, I would have families kind of weighing that out and like, well, I want mom closer to me. And, no, I want her closer to me. And mom's like, I want to be closer to my friends,
Yes.
my church, my this, my that. And what I found is for some of those that did uproot their parents or their loved ones, was that their schedules really didn't change and they really didn't visit as often as they said or that they thought they would. And then the person was really quite isolated because now they didn't have this replacement, in terms of that personal engagement. So I think that that's really a wise move for families to really weigh that in. I'm also interested in, how do you in your community kind of enhance and elevate the New York lifestyle to your residents?
So, I mean, I might be biased, but New York City has a lot of extraordinary things to offer, whether that means it's going to be culinary or food or, something in terms of cultural, art, music. We're really very lucky that we've got a lot of things to explore really at our doorstep. Now, being that everybody here has cognitive impairment, it's not necessarily realistic to think that every resident is going to enjoy a trip to the Met. Those days might be over. However, there are really great ways to still have exposure to the arts and to music by bringing programs on site. We have a lot of partnerships that have been really extraordinary. So, for example, Alvin Ailey comes in and does a dance program with our residents. We have some intergenerational programs with a group called Sweet Readers that partners with the local schools and brings students in to do programming with the residents. We do have those trips for residents who want to go offsite and go to the museums. We can offer that. And then, of course, something as simple as a walk in the neighborhood, getting outside, getting fresh air, getting that vitamin D is so important for our residents. And it's something that we're able to offer regularly. Just, our location where we are in the city, it's very residential. So we're able to take advantage of that too.
That's nice. And I like when you mentioned, going to the Met, but, one of the things families might not understand, some may totally and others might not, but how do you evaluate if someone is still able or comfortable going on an outing like that?
Yeah. So that's actually a little tricky because sometimes, when we first meet with families, we're grieving. Obviously, this whole process is a grieving process. And I think sometimes families are very much trying to hold on to who their loved one was for as long as possible. And sometimes that comes into play when we're looking at activities programs. And it may be that their loved one used to have a subscription to going to see shows or going out to a museum. One of the things that we always like to do is before somebody moves in, we have a family meeting, and it's very much our first step in collaborating with the families and a partnership so that we can best support their loved one. And, being very transparent is really important in those meetings. And so we will often tell families, yes, this is probably it was very important to who they were. And we would like to explore that as a possibility. However, we have to take into consideration that sometimes the things we used to enjoy may no longer bring us joy. Perhaps being at a busy museum might now cause us distress or anxiety or discomfort. And so as a community, we really want to give that person some time to really adjust to the new environment when they move in. So not trying to do any big trips or anything extraordinary right when they get here. We want them to start to trust us as their caregivers and as their support system. And we also want to see, is this going to be something that's going to be beneficial, or is it going to be something that's going to be triggering for them? And that's kind of how we evaluate and assess that situation.
And I'm glad to hear that. I know with many families, I think of my own, with my mom living with dementia for 30 years, I think I had a really good handle on what works and what doesn't, what made mom comfortable. But if you asked my brothers, you would have gotten a whole different set of answers because they really weren't around and they were still viewing her as that person who she used to be. And so again, I think it's important to take in everything from, is this safe? Could they wander off? Are they comfortable? Noise sometimes will, really bother people, or the commotion. And in New York, I mean, it could be a fire truck or a police siren or a garbage truck that's just jarring, right away. And I think people don't always realize what that does to somebody. And then you have just the lighting with the shows, or the seating or the mobility to get there. All of those things are so critically important. So I really encourage families to not only say what they see, but be open to what other people are seeing, because a lot of times a third party will see stuff that you don't always take into consideration, and that's pretty normal, with family situations. I really want to talk about, to you, what looks good in memory care? How do you guys stand out? How do you qualify that?
So I would say, just in terms of who we are as a community, what looks good to us is really providing the resident with the best quality of life that we can. And I think, again, this is really going to lean greatly on our partnerships with the families, because a lot of families are looking for different things for their loved ones in terms of how we can improve that quality of life. Are we looking at a resident who has had home care coming into their home and it's been unsuccessful? Maybe they have been resistive to having somebody come in their home and their personal care needs are not being met appropriately. Maybe it is somebody that, has been very isolated and they're not going and meeting friends like they used to, or their friends have stopped calling them, or they're not able to get out as much. And for us, it's really trying to just better their day-to-day experience. And on a day where somebody is having a really good day and just really thriving, we really want to do as much as we can in those moments. And if we're able to get them to participate in a particular program with encouragement, or if it's that maybe that's the day they're going to let us, help them with their shower and they're comfortable with us helping them with their shower, or bringing them to the beauty parlor to have their hair done for the beauty parlor. Those are the things that we're really going to want to explore in those good moments. And, again, I think good looks different to everybody. So for us, it's really not just about what many people think is the main goal of care, the ADLs and supporting the personal care needs, but let's support their emotional needs and intellectual needs and social needs as well. And that's what good looks like to us.
Now, in terms of that framework, do you take into consider schedules? Because I know some communities, it's like, nope, we are eating at this time, and this is what's on the menu, and you're taking a shower on this day and this time, and bedtime is, and there's no crossing that line, and then it's kind of like the Dukes come out and both sides get frustrated with that. What is 80th Street stands with things like that?
So, we do feel that structure and routine is really important for people living with cognitive impairment. It helps with functioning. They know almost what to expect. And, it just kind of helps a little bit. But with that being said, people have their preferences, they have their rights, they have good days and bad days. And so we're very flexible when it comes to structure and routine. If somebody gets up in the morning and we know that they were up during the night and they just had a rough night, maybe taking that shower at 7:30 in the morning before they have their breakfast, really not the biggest deal. Let them have their breakfast in their PJs and their bathrobe if they want. And when they're ready to shower or get changed, we can support them where they're at.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. how about the other two things I want to mention about kind of how good looks like is also for your staff, because I would think when your residents are happy, your staff are going to be happy, and then also the families, because I know the families can kind of be a twisted knife. I've been a family member and I know they've loved me and hated me at the same time, so let's start with families and then we'll go to staff. So does your community support families in terms of education and conversation and things like that?
Very much so. So a lot of our support for families, you have your sort of structured meetings that we like to do, starting with an open door policy from before somebody even moves in here and establishing that trust, but then having continued communication. Communication is the best way we can be successful with families, because we are the feet on the ground supporting their loved ones. And so we have to have open communication. We have to be accessible. And then there also has to be family trust. And I think a big way that we are able to build that trust is by including families in pretty much everything we do. If we're doing particular activities programs, invite them in. We just celebrated Passover and Easter. We invited them all in, come celebrate with us. I think the other thing that families really appreciate is us being a resource for other professional organizations out there. If they are looking for support, but maybe don't want to attend the support group that we offer for families. There are so many wonderful organizations doing professional support groups, whether virtually or in person. We can point them in the right direction. We can give them more resources. And I think that really helps a great deal for them as well.
When you had mentioned like the schedules and stuff, do you find sometimes families think that that's set in stone? Because I know that I experienced that. I think I was a little more flexible in that, but at times I saw families like, well, you said, and they weren't taking into account what you were talking about. Well, if they didn't sleep through the night, we're going to adjust that. If they're having a bad day. Is that part of your educational experience kind of for families to?
Yes, very much so. We want them to understand that as much as we feel structure and routine is very important, everything we do is based on what's best for the resident. And again, if a resident really is just, let's even say it's an activities program that they normally love, if they're just not in the mood to do it, even with encouragement, we're not going to force them to go to a program. And yes, families might come and say, well, why aren't they at the concert? My loved one loves this. We understand that. But then that's our job to say, you know what? They're really just having a rough day today. They didn't want to go even with encouragement. So we are going to try at the next concert, and I think that's where families really start to feel a sense of being comfortable, because they know it is the truth. People are going to have good days and bad days. And if they miss a concert today, there's an opportunity for tomorrow to go to another one.
Yeah. And I think if they're honest, they've done the same thing at home. It's like, okay, this battle's not worth it. We're going to push this aside and let's just all try to get through the day, in a peaceful manner. So exactly. Then how does all of that affect your staff then, with this whole mentality of what good looks like? Do you see that having an impact on your staff?
I definitely think so. I think our staff, they work the same floor. So there's consistent staffing. They know their residents, and they're really important for us, to know what's going on. And they're the first ones to tell us, okay, this particular resident didn't sleep well and they want to sleep in, but I don't want to get in trouble if, their daughter comes to visit and they're not up and showered. And so it's a great way for us to be proactive. And again, that communication coming into play. But it also helps them. It's going to be a lot harder to support somebody with a shower if, first of all, they're tired. There's a higher risk for falls. Safety is an issue, but also their own well-being. If you have somebody who may get distressed and maybe physically reacts, that's not fair for our staff to have to go through either. So I think, in embracing what looks good and really following resident leads and being able to communicate to the nurses and the rest of the staff here, I think they feel a great level of support. And and happiness and just satisfaction with the hard job that they're doing.
I think that's great because as we all know, what we're feeling and what we project bounces off onto other people, and if we're negative, all of a sudden, boy, it can be like a shooting match going on, with the aggression and stuff. And you don't want that. And when there's joy, that catches on too. And it just gives a whole different feel when you walk into the community. I think a community like yours, you can really feel the difference when that is taken to heart and really applied. So thank you for sharing that. Deanna, I want to go to you next because I understood that you and Lindsey connected at an Aging Life Care Association conference. And I'm just wondering if you can give us a little more background. That's always fun to hear. And then how that led, 80th Street and Seni working together.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back in time, probably about a year ago, a little over a year ago. We sponsored Aging Life Care Association. I just have to put a little plug in for them because they are just, man, what a great group of people and resources. And it's amazing within this one group how much each care manager knows or thrives to know or wants to know. And so just an incredible group. So we sponsor them and they have their annual conference. And so we attended the annual conference last year. Lindsey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was right in Orlando.
It was.
And honestly, our purpose in going was really from an educational perspective. We want awareness that we're here, but it's more, geriatric care managers. I think of them as the quarterback of the team helping people who need care. So we went from a learning perspective, and I really didn't expect to see a community with a booth out. Nonetheless, from New York City. And I personally feel very alive when I go to New York City. I just love going there for a long weekend and so forth. So just in general conversation with Lindsey, if we go back, we're kind of on the other side of it. But if you go back even a year ago and you think of New York City as the epicenter of COVID, one of the things right away when I just introduced myself to Lindsey and she back to me was her tenure with 80th Street resident. And I honestly think, Lindsey, you should be applauded. When I hear long tenure for people that are on the other side of COVID, right in New York City, that is telling not only from directly a Lindsey perspective, but to me all the way up through leadership and culture and staff together, no matter what the role, because that's an amazing feat. And still, Lindsey's always got a smile on her face, always willing to talk. So we connected, just having conversation, and I'm into relationships and baby steps and learning. And I felt that feeling was mutual. She was as eager to learn about Seni as I was to learn about her community and their business model and where they were located and so forth. So I think during the breaks of other people, we would kind of maneuver towards one another. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, we have a rep up in New York City. Could this work? Should this work? Let's have a conversation. And so fast forward to Lori Gredley, my teammate, saying, hey, we should get in touch with Lindsey. And she said it was okay to reach out. And Lori does her homework. And I kid you not, Lori calls me and says, you're not going to believe this. Lindsey, Lori LeBay. And I go, oh my goodness. But this is what we need as a whole to help people. It's all resources, people helping people. Like, I just love that more than anything else. And so we, Lori and I made a trip up to New York City, and I will tell you, it's not often, it is never expected. It is not often that we go into a community and that community has a table with all the folks that are involved in evaluating products for their residents, with lunch for us sitting on the table. Lori and I, my team and I, couldn't believe it. And we weren't there for a lunch. We came and said, these people are kind. They're nice. They've taken the time to sit with us. It was not this vendor selling something and the community listening. It was, let's bond and see if we have a good fit. And I think we spent, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, seriously, 45 minutes of understanding each other's backgrounds, understanding their resident care, understanding how did they adjust to COVID happening right in the city? What did that feel like for staff and residents? So it was just this great initial conversation. And then if I remember, we had a little bit of lunch and maybe, 10 or 15% of the time was, okay, well, wait a minute, let us show you. We're excited to show you how great these products are. And so we were able to evolve to sharing the benefits and the value. And then that leapfrogged even further into, we work with distributors. And so we're able to connect them and, follow up from there with helping with measuring of residents and just evolve. But it was baby steps all the way for all the wonderful right reasons. And that to me is what I go back to. What does good look like? It's something for everybody. Everybody's different. And there are a million and zillion components. But when you have understanding, when you network with people, when you take the time to listen and understand workflow and challenges and residents. And I just think even on their building, Lindsey mentions it goes vertical. I think they have the cutest awning on the front that we walked under, Lori and I, and it was a day in the summer. I typically, for varied reasons, go up in the winter, and it was just a beautiful day where I saw more greenery. And I think if that's your background of what you're used to, even just going into that community just felt alive. It just felt alive. And I can say that Lindsey and her teammates and folks that I've met anyway, just I go back to happy. They resonate happy, and that's got to ripple out to residents and trust. And I think, gee, if my mom or dad is there, and I go in and I'm talking to Lindsey, I know just my gut feel is, do I trust this person? Do I like this person? Is mom or dad going to be safe? And all of those things just shine with Lindsey and the other folks. And that kind of, led, here you go, Lori, and she takes the data we still touch and we're going to be, connected again at Aging Life. But that rippled into Lori's relationship. So it just keeps evolving.
Wow. Well, I remember having Lindsey on the show and we talked about COVID. And one of the things I was really impressed about 80th Street, and this kind of ties back into, the table of everyone who was involved in the meal and just the graciousness. But to this day, I still talk to others about two things that you did for your staff. One was transporting them to and from to get them to work and sending them home with meals for their families. And I thought, this company gets it. And if you don't get it, if you aren't true problem solvers of looking at the big picture, and it sounds like that's exactly, what they set up when you guys came out was, we are big picture people. We are out for quality care. And that means quality for everyone that works here and families. You have to be a well-oiled machine. And I think so often companies get stuck on just the resident, but there's so many different components to that that are critical for that machine to really run well. Lori, I want to flip over to you and talk about how did your relationship kind of bloom with Lindsey then after that meeting and working with her teammates over the last year?
Oh boy. Well, I do have to just go back to that meeting for just a few minutes because I just remember that was one of the most pleasurable afternoons. And Deanna and I have been all over the place at different buildings, and we've taken tours, and we've been at associations and trade shows, and we've been all over the place. That afternoon in the city, I used to live in the city. So I lived 5 blocks south of 80th Street where Lindsey's community is. And it's just my heart belongs there. So it is my favorite city. So I have a tiny bit of a bias and special connection with 80th Street residents. So the first, like Deanna was saying, when we walked in the door, and I just told Lindsay this the other day, I looked at Deanna and I said, are they expecting the Queen for lunch? What is going on? Because Deanna and I had offered to take them to lunch. And so we thought, we're coming to introduce our products to you guys. We would love nothing more than to sit down and treat you guys to lunch and talk and get to know you guys. And they had this unbelievable spread. Well, one of the reasons why they declined our offer was because it was still kind of shifting out of COVID a little bit. And so, we still had to wear the masks and all that until we got into the beautiful conference room. And so they wanted to do things right from the first meeting, which I thought, that stood out to me. The presentation alone, I could talk hours about that, but as soon as they started entering the room, I just got a sense of these are going to be the best people we work with. Like, they truly are. And again, speaking to the testament of their tenure, Lindsay, as well as the executive director, Claire, and some of their other team members, I don't know how many, Lindsay, I mean, obviously, but they're sitting there telling us around the table, 15 years, 20 years. I mean, Deanna and I are looking at each other, Seni hasn't been around that long in the US, so we weren't able to say those kind of numbers, but it's just, it's a huge testament to 80th Street. And so the relationship has absolutely blossomed. And I told Lindsay again the other day, I said, I cannot wait to come back to your community soon because I want that official tour. I want that tour. We were not we weren't able to have it during the COVID time, but yeah, so I'm totally looking forward to that and coming back to the city and sitting down with them. It's been great because over the past year, 80th Street does all kinds of really, really cool stuff for the community. So they're involved with a couple Alzheimer's walks, some different Alzheimer's walks. So I went over and supported them with one of their walks, me and the distributor that they work with. And then we are first time exhibitors at an association called ESAL, which stands for Empire State Association of Assisted Living. Lindsay and her team had told me and Deanna about this association and told us that it's assisted living communities that basically are in the New York area, and they all attend. This is a great association for you guys. You ought to look into it. So sure enough, we did, and we became members, and now we'll be the first time exhibitors in first week of May, I believe it is. It's coming up. Yep. It's right around the corner. So looking forward to that. And, I love supporting them, and I think it goes both ways. They support us in other ways, and it's really just become a very, very nice, healthy relationship between all of us. So it's been great.
It is fun to hear all the connections, and just there's so much to be said when you inherently feel that comfort, that graciousness within a person or within a community or an organization. It's life-changing in terms of how things transpire in the future. And so, and again, having so many people who have stayed so long. I mean, people always ask me, well, who would you recommend? And I'm like, it's like chess out there. I don't know who's where, flipping pancakes, no, they were here and now they're over here. And I literally can't keep up anymore. So when I hear that there's a company that is extremely stable like that, again, it's like kudos, because it is very much a rarity in this day and age. So, please take that back to everybody at 80th Street. That is huge. And you're a great example for other communities on what to strive for. Lindsay, I want to talk to you about Seni's Continence Care program and how that affects your residents, your families, your staff, and how that all came to be. Did you just hop in, or did you kind of test it at first, or how did that work?
Well, to go back to that first meeting, actually at the conference when I met Deanna, she failed to mention she had tons of samples. So I was the lucky recipient of not only hand lotions, but, various wipes, various products. And so I brought them all back with me and gave them to my director of care managers, Jerry. And so he works very closely with the caregivers up on the floors. And he's like, these things are great. How do we get more of these? Who sells these? And I'm like, all right, if you're into it, then let's move forward. And so when we had the meeting and Deanna and Lori actually did their sort of, display and pouring a bottle of water in this, product, and then showing us more and more and more and more water going into this product and really what it was doing, we were all blown away. And, one of the things we talked about is people don't talk about incontinence, right? It's like a taboo thing to talk about. But I think, first of all, if you're somebody who's suffering from it, or if you know somebody who is, it's a big thing, right? I mean, people tend to then spend more time near the bathroom if they're worried they're going to have an accident, or people might be at a higher risk for UTIs and other sort of infections that can occur if you have incontinence. And so by seeing what Deanna and Lori had to offer with their Seni products, we were all kind of like, okay, like we need to jump on this. We need to get this in our building, because we know not only is it going to be better for our residents who, I would say a majority of them, at some point in time do become incontinent, and it's going to be better for the caregivers too, knowing that they've got better, quality products, and that if somebody, does have an accident, they're not going to necessarily leak through their clothes or leak onto furniture. Now we've got, instead of just toileting someone or helping them assist with changing, now we've got 3 other, jobs that we need to go through. It was just huge. We all saw it right away in that first meeting. We're like, we need to do this. And so we went all in.
What did staff have to say, regarding the products? Did you hear comments from them? Did it make their jobs easier?
It definitely. So I think a lot of what happened is that they noticed that the residents were feeling better. Those who are incontinent, they were feeling better. They, if they were prone to UTIs, they were not getting them. But more importantly, I think, especially for our residents who are in those more advanced stages, right? And now they're needing more physical assistance. You might have a greater risk for skin breakdown and other things that may happen. That staff was reporting, their skin is staying dry, the skin integrity has improved. People who may have incontinence at night, and maybe during the day they're fine, but incontinence at night can happen. These residents are staying dry. I mean, the staff bought into it when they were seeing, what great products they are and how they make a difference for the residents.
Did families notice a difference in terms of visits and things like that, or taking people out?
Yes. And so I think a lot of our families would notice, not so much during visits, but more when they would take their loved ones out. So a lot of times, especially if they're going out for an extended period of time, maybe it's the whole day or maybe even a weekend away, we'll often get all their belongings together, medications, personal products, including incontinence products. And so I think they would see that, wow, these products are really great. Like, my loved one is not, necessarily having as many accidents, and, they're staying dry for longer, or we went out to a show and, we didn't have to get up and go use the restroom and, have any issues with leakage or things like that. So the families definitely were noticing as well.
It makes a big difference just when everyone can take a breath and not be on high alert. And when you were talking about people who have incontinence problems, there is nothing to talk about. I mean, that's kind of how we've been taught. It's a taboo. But Seni has really given us something to talk about. It gives people their freedom and their dignity back. They're not as scared to go out. They want to be included. It's less work for staff or for family members. I mean, it just it's a great product, it seems like, for everyone, and really enhances everybody's quality of life, not just the person who's incontinent, because kind of like with dementia, it has incontinence has a ripple effect, just like dementia does. It's not just that person. There are other people that are involved in making sure that that person is safe. And, when you've got, skin breakdowns and UTIs, and, you start heading into that whole medical realm of things can tip off really quickly and become extremely dangerous really fast. I mean, that's a really, really important. I just want to clarify for other families and other communities that you include in your service fee, or is this an additional charge where, typically families have to buy product anyways?
So we, the way that we structured our program here was very, we made the conscious decision to have an all-inclusive program. And for us, all-inclusive also means including all toiletries and incontinence products. And, I think when we did one of those first meetings and we kind of sat down and crunched the numbers, we had to go to the owners and say, listen, when you look at the numbers, the black and white, it's a little more expensive. However, when you sit and you realize the amount of products you're going to be going through and just sort of, it ended up being pretty comparable to what we were paying for non-quality products. And so it really made a difference. And we're happy to be able to find products like Seni and include that for our residents. And families don't have to worry like, oh, I have to order online and get a bulk package shipped there, or I've got to go to Costco because that's where I can get the best deals, or whatever other, sort of big box store. It just makes it easier. And it's a great quality product. So,
yeah. Well, and a lot of times, like you said, people do shop by price, but price doesn't matter. I think of my daughter who just has a newborn, and she's like, we got boxes of diapers, at the baby shower and stuff. But she's like, these ones, they just don't work as well. They don't fit as well. They don't hold there. And the same thing applies here. And I think that that's so important. One of the things, that I've just heard with Seni is just the protection guards, the leak guards and stuff. You don't really hear that on a whole lot of others, or I haven't. Maybe it's just me. So Deanna, I'm going to flip over to you, and if you wouldn't mind explaining kind of the leak guards a little bit, and then we'll talk about how you and your team are kind of traveling the country, kind of spreading the word.
Yeah, sure. Well, leak guards are one of the features of our product. So we refer to them as inner leak guards. And we hope that people are taking advantage of the education that we're providing out there. So when choosing a high quality product that's going to perform well for people that are incontinent, we always start on the front end of try to evaluate individually each person to see, can we improve continence first for individuals? Can we take them from one level and then maybe it's less incontinence and go from there? And then for the demographic that is going to be incontinent, when you're looking at a product, you should look at a product that is fully breathable, 100%, because if you're on the preventative end, we should not get to the ugly of skin breakdown and rashes and skin integrity and things like that. And then leak guards, super, super important. Equally important is knowing how to lift those leak guards, because in manufacturing, products come off the line and get packaged very tight. So we have flyers for caregivers, and we do product caregiver training because we want to show them how to activate a brief, how to open it up, stretch it out, lift the leak guards. The product performs much better when you know these types of things. So it's that educational component of how to properly use the product as well. And then we've got products for day, products for night. We've got products for light incontinence, moderate incontinence, heavy, severe. We go the gamut, and we like people to look at each person's needs. With dementia, some people will fare better in a pull-up versus a brief. Some people, to Lindsay's point, they may not need an overnight product during the day if they're having assistance with toileting, but maybe at night they need an overnight product. So, and then our products are made of soft materials for comfort. So we feel like if someone feels dry, if they are dry, and if they're wearing something comfortable, they can focus on the show in New York City, on the food at the restaurant in New York City, or wherever they live, and incontinence becomes secondary. I don't have to worry. I can. And to your point, Lori, that ripples out to the family. So I don't have to worry either that we're going to have to, leave the show or have a challenging day. So the features: full breathability, inner leak guards, even our core. Unless you're Lori Gredline and my teammates, no one's going around the country ripping up a core of an adult brief. But I tell you, it's become second nature to us because we want people to be aware that you want to stay away from a product that might have what they call a plastic acquisition distribution layer. When somebody voids, that urine spreads evenly in a product like Seni that's got an extra dry system. What does that really mean? Well, it means that the urine's being whipped away quickly and it's becoming locked. And when those things happen, then you're reducing pressure on somebody's private areas for that skin integrity should be maintained. It ties in with reducing UTIs. It ties in with comfort of the feeling of dryness, and the feeling of dryness. If I feel dry, I sleep through the night. If I sleep through the night, I don't get up. And if I don't get up, I don't fall. And then we can talk about how everybody's living happily versus how do we reduce admissions to the ER at night due to fall. So it all ripples, but yeah, those are kind of the features of the products. For Lori and my teammates and I, we are kind of traveling around, just spreading the word that you can have a really great product, and we do. But you need to educate folks how to properly use the products, what size, what type, what absorbency level, all those things. So we're tying the two together, and it's really, really fun and rewarding when you get those calls and the emails and the testimonials of reduced UTIs and less sheets, and it just goes on and on. I don't know. I'm very comfortable with it. I know Lori Gredline is, to our whole team. We eat, sleep, and incontinence, and who would have ever thought? But change is needed in this country. So it's very rewarding.
I have a question, because one thing people might ask too, does your brief work with odor control at all?
What's interesting? It does, yes, to answer your question. If I understand this correctly, urine starts to have an odor when it comes in contact with sheets, right, and soiled garments and so forth. So the way those leak guards become very, very important in addition to our extra dry system or our inner layer, because when someone voids, if it wicks away right away, so it's staying within our inner core, I'm going to call it, stays right, and it wicks away. The way that our products are made, we have what they call cellulose pulp and polymers. And I think if you took a cup of water and you put cotton balls in it, it would immediately grasp, but then it would stay soaked. You need something to lock it. So that combination of polymers and cellulose pulp wick urine away, lock it in place. And that's a construction feature of the product. So that does reduce the urine odor.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing that I've heard too is just the way you distribute products, where people aren't running out. I mean, it's just, there's a good communication system with that as well. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so we work with distributors. So we're manufacturers, and we work with distributor partners. We work with several of the large distributors across the country. We work with regional distributors. And what we do is we ask folks in communities, who do you work with? Do you like who you work with? Do you work well with them? Through COVID, I will share that many communities have said, I've got my primary distributor and I've got my secondary distributor. Some have now, and a lot of that has to do with logistics across the board. We've been very fortunate. Knock on wood, we've been very, very fortunate with being able to get through COVID without having inventory issues. But yeah, so we work through distributors, and then what we do is we connect the dots for people, and then we guide them with different SKU numbers that correspond with the item numbers. So we make it very, very easy. And then we have very good relationships with our distributor partners as well. We work with McKesson, we work with Medline, we work with Cardinal. 80th Street Residence works with Adoro Healthcare Supplies, one of our other great relationships. So many that we have. We're more, as manufacturers, you want to be able to work with as many distributor partners so everybody in the country has access, but it's crucial to have that three-prong, I call it, connection between manufacturer, distributor partner, and community, all streamlined with guidance and help to have those products available for the different needs of the residents ultimately.
Yeah, because it sounds like everything that you've done, you guys have really come in kind of big picture, not only quality of life, but quality of work, and making things as easy as possible for everyone involved. And again, all this stuff reduces stress, builds relationships. And that's one of the things that I love with all three of these ladies. They're really relationship based in terms of looking at big picture and how do we provide the best service in our area that we can. And to me, that's really pronounced with all three of you. Is there anything, Lindsey, that you would like to add?
I'm sorry, I had to unmute myself. I mentioned when we started this earlier, before everybody started watching, we have a dog here. So I said if it got a little too noisy that I'd mute myself. So I apologize for that. The only thing that I'd like to add is just, working with Deanna and with Lori and their distributors, it's been such a nice experience. And, as I said, who would think that we'd get so excited about incontinence products and incontinence care, but the truth is it really makes a difference. And I would just encourage anybody who is out at any trade shows, if you see them, you should stop and say hello and just learn a little bit more from the source about the product, because it really has made a huge difference here at 80th Street. So we're very happy.
Wonderful. Thank you. Lori, anything that you'd like to add?
I just wanted to go back to that first meeting we had with 80th Street residents, and I'll never forget this because I loved how Lindsey said earlier, we were all in, and probably, it was a matter of maybe it could have been less than a month later. We told them, guys, we will do pretty much all the work to get you started with this program. We will even assist with, hiring somebody from the outside to come in and do the measurements if you need help there. If you, need some more samples to try it on a few more of your residents who are challenged with incontinence, please let us know and we'll be happy to send you the samples. So like I said, probably no less than 3 weeks later, I get an email from Lindsey. We had provided her with these worksheets basically, and you just check boxes and give those hips and waist measurement and what they're wearing, right, so that we could then turn around and give the samples the correct size. And she sends me back a full spreadsheet, and she says, in classic 80th Street resident style, we created our own spreadsheet for this. And I was laughing so hard because I'm like, well, your Excel spreadsheet is actually nicer, I think, than what we have to offer you. It was so easy to read. It was, room, whatever, this hips, this measure, this waist. They're wearing a brief. They're wearing a combination of brief and underwear, day and night. Absorbency level. They had everything. It was like walking into that beautiful conference room with that beautiful lunch spread out on the table. It was just, it's their style, and it's top notch all the way through. So it's been nothing but a pleasure to work with these guys, and excited to see them at the ESAL Association coming up in a few weeks, and happy to keep on with this partnership.
Yes.
Right. Deanna, any last comments for you? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get people contact information.
Yeah, no, I just always want to say thank you for the educational platform, Lori LeBay. It's super appreciated. Lindsey, I hope you know how much we value every relationship. Yours is a very special one. They're all special, but that connection was right out of the gate. And so we're grateful. We're very grateful. And again, grateful to all of our distributor partners. And we're happy that you're working so well with Adoro. We work very well with them as well. So it's all good across the board.
You can, reach out to Seni by going to their website, which is Seni, SENI-USA.com. You can email Deanna. You can go to the YouTube channel, which is Seni USA Cares. They're on LinkedIn under their corporate name, TZMO-USA-Inc. And of course, they're on Facebook as Seni Cares as well. And then for 80th Street, you can always get a hold of Lindsey by going to 80thstreetresidence.com. We've got her email address as well. And then you can call her at 212-717-8888. And they are also on Facebook as 80th Street Residence, and on LinkedIn as the 80th Street Residence. So don't be shy, reach out. I learn something every time we have one of these conversations, and I'm so thankful that Seni is out there really changing this conversation. You are making such a massive difference in so many areas, because, well, just like your article on Dementia Map was, this isn't always just older adults. This isn't just memory care. This can affect a lot of different people. And don't ever forget that there are products and services, and there really are people that care and want to make a difference in your life and make it better. So please check them out. As listeners, I always ask you to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share this episode, not because Alzheimer's Speaks wants the little click. I don't count those things. I don't really pay a lot of attention. I know I'm supposed to, but because people need this information, and you have people in your own circles, family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, colleagues, acquaintances that might pick up on this. And just let them breathe a little easier, get that information out to them, because is a great job that Seni is doing running around to these conferences. They're not able to knock on everyone's door and have this personal conversation. And this is just a really nice, easy conversation for people to listen and learn. And they deserve to know about these services. So help out, be a giver of hope, and just like, click, and share. And again, you can always go to alzheimerspeaks.com for other free resources. In the meantime, we will see you next week. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you. Bye-bye. Well, hi, I'm Lori LeBay, and I wanted to tell you about Alzheimer Speaks, which is another great podcast. You see, my own mother lived with dementia for 30 years, and I felt lost. Did you know every 3 seconds someone in the world is being diagnosed with dementia? Odds are it's going to hit your families too. We want to help you connect to services, products, tools, research, and stories so you can be prepared. Please subscribe to Alzheimer Speaks on your favorite podcast platform.